It's a beautiful Sunday morning here in Kuala Lumpur, and looks like it's another day to talk about what has become almost one of my favorite topics, and that is the MM2H visa program here in Malaysia. Anybody that follows it knows that most of the requirements have been released. I don't think they're going to change that much, although I'm pretty sure there will be a few tweaks here and there in the coming months. But the big pieces are already on the table. That's the home buying requirement and the large fixed deposit. Also, if you're interested in this visa, you probably know more about this than I do. So you can probably dismiss the idea of watching this video for information and use it mainly for entertainment. If you want to get full details, you can look them up. I put a link in the description for the video below. I think it's right. The thing is, everywhere you look, there are slight differences in what the requirements are, or the time limits, or the fees involved. But like I said, the big pieces are there. So if you're really interested, forget about what I say or what the link in the description says. Forget about all that and contact an agent. They're the ones that'll give you the full details of what you need to do. The market has actually changed. The target applicant is no longer a retiree. Recall that when this first started, MM2H was known as Malaysia's retirement visa. It isn't that anymore, as I said in an earlier video. It's now for investors. Now, under the much more stringent financial requirements, applicants have to buy residential property in Malaysia. Now, I don't know about you, I'm a retiree, and I'll be honest, the last thing I want to do is to take on debt, especially buying a house in a foreign country. That's not an attractive proposition for a real retiree. So that's why I think the new MM2H requirements are aimed at investors who really want to buy property in the country. It has to be residential property, and there are some other restrictions on it, of course, especially if you're a foreigner. The other major financial requirement is a large fixed deposit in a Malaysian bank. Yeah, I know, a fixed deposit. You can get a better return putting your money underneath your bed. So it's trying to attract people, let's just say wealthy people. It's trying to attract wealthy people. I think that sums it up. When I think of possible applicants that this visa might be aimed at, I think of two places. The first one is Singapore. There's a wide gap between cost of living in Malaysia and cost of living in Singapore. So if you're a Singaporean citizen and you're working in your country, saving retirement dollars, when it comes time for you to retire, you can take a short trip across the causeway and live in Malaysia for 5 to 10 years, depending on which visa you apply for, and at a much lower cost. Your retirement dollars will go far in Malaysia, much farther than they ever could in Singapore. So I think it's an attractive proposition for Singaporeans. The second group that I think might be interested in applying for this visa are Chinese citizens. One of the reasons Malaysia decided to add the property buying requirement to the MM2H scheme is because there's a huge property overhang here in Malaysia. And one of those has happened to a Chinese developer called Country Garden, which you maybe have heard of already. So if Chinese citizens are able to come to Malaysia and take some currency with them so they can purchase homes, especially in what's called Forest City, which is in the southern part of Malaysia, that will help ease not only the property overhang overall in Malaysia, but will also help boost the financials of Country Garden, a Chinese company that is in really dire straits real estate-wise in China. Country Garden is the main developer of the Forest City project. They own 60% of the project, and the other 40% is owned by the Johor government through a company called Esplanade Dagan. You can check that out. But whenever anything like that happens, usually Malaysian VIPs and other kinds of big shots are involved. So right now they're taking a real hit. Forest City is in what's called a special economic zone or a special financial zone, where some of the requirements for MM2H are relaxed. I think it's the fixed deposit. The requirement for the fixed deposit is smaller if you purchase in Forest City than if you purchase somewhere else. Finally, I want to talk about why I think the changes and the more stringent requirements has caused such upset. And the first thing is, I think a lot of people use these kinds of visa programs as aspirational goals. I know when I first heard of MM2H, I thought two things. One, it was within my capability to apply for it. This was back under the original, much less stringent financial requirements. And since I was already living in Malaysia on a work visa, I thought, well, yeah, this would be a nice place to retire. So I seriously thought about applying for the MM2H for a while. Then the pandemic happened and the requirements changed, and my desire to actually apply for a visa to retire here sort of waned a bit. So my goal now, I have no intention of applying for any kind of retirement visa anywhere, unless it's free. Once I decided that I wasn't going to be applying for MM2H under any circumstances, I started to think, would I apply for a retirement visa anywhere? I like being in Malaysia. I really enjoy coming here to spend 3 months. When I show up with my US passport, I get a stamp that allows me to stay for 3 months before I have to leave. It's a social visit pass, so there isn't anything like an extension or anything like that. It's 3 months at maximum, and then you're gone. But I realized that 3 months in Malaysia for free, all I have to do is pay for my food and lodging. I don't have to pay anything for the visa. That's a good deal, a really good deal. And I like to travel, so if I spend 3 months every year in Malaysia, I'm going to be a happy person. I don't think I would enjoy spending all my time here. When I worked here before, I was here for 6 years on a work visa or a work permit. I had a reason to be here. I had a job. Now, if I come, I'm just visiting. So, visiting for 3 months, I can see all my friends. We can do some things together. And then at the end of 3 months, I'm off out of the country, heading somewhere else. So if you think you need a full-time retirement visa in certain places, you might want to rethink that, because you might not really enjoy staying in a place all the time. Food for thought. I'm right underneath the monorail tracks, and the reason I'm not riding the monorail is I think this morning KL Monorail had the air conditioning system on it set to kill. It was freezing. I rode down to KL Central on the monorail, and I was wishing I had brought a jacket with me. It was that cold. So when I got off, it was nice. It felt nice to get off into the warm air, and it only took my glasses like 5 minutes to get all the mist off them. But if you do come to Malaysia, you might not think you need a jacket, but if you're going to take public transport, it's something you should think about. That's my take on MM2H. I'd like to hear what your thoughts are about it. I hang around in 2 Facebook groups that talk about the MM2H visa program, but I'm sure there's better information or more information elsewhere. So if you come across anything, please send it to me. My email address is in the description of the video, and I'd appreciate seeing it in the comments also. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.